Alright, what is up guys? Welcome back to another Path of Exile 2 video here. Today, I want to take a look at the new ascendancy for Warrior because that's kind of my playstyle class of choice is the smash things, big bonk. So this class is what I wanted to just take a look at. First off, if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button, really appreciate it. Helps me out. Like, comment your thoughts on this class. I'd appreciate, hearing the feedback. I try and respond to every comment. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look. We'll just go through the real brief introductory video here, and then we'll take a look at the full ascendancy tree, and I'll give you some of my thoughts on the class. So let's watch this real quick.
Those are not the only ascendancies in Dawn of the Hunt. We've added a new ascension class for 3 of the other existing classes too. First up, for our warriors out there, we have the Smith of Kitava. The warrior is a blacksmith in origin, taught by his father Renly. With this ascension, you can take your smithing skills to new heights by embracing power from the insatiable one himself.
So one thing that I noticed there already is there's like an animation for you having to, smith your weapon or, hit it with the hammer on the anvil. And one thing I want to know is, like, is this a once per map kind of thing, or is it a every 20 to 30 seconds kind of thing? Because, if you're in the middle of a fight and you're clearing packs, like, and you constantly have to stop and redo that, it's going to slow your clear speed. So, to me, unless it's just super powerful buff, the time you have to stop is already a huge negative in my book.
Kitava. Smiths of Kitava are master blacksmiths and have the ability to forge their weapon, quite literally. Using the Against the Anvil notable skill, you can enhance your weapon with fiery destruction before any battle. After doing so, your attacks will release explosions on hit for maximum devastation. You can also use the power of Kitava to summon an animated copy of your weapon to fight alongside you. A great blacksmith can do more than just forging their weapon, though.
I'm a little disappointed that it's just basically like animate weapon is now like your ascendancy class. This class seems to give you a lot of just active abilities to pick from, and then we'll take a look at the next part, which I have very
mixed class tree looks a little
very mixed emotions about this.
There's a lot of notable skills all disconnected at the bottom there. By taking this point here, which is free to assign, your character is unable to equip body armors with mods of any kind. So your body armor must be normal. Sounds like a downside, right? Except now in true blacksmith fashion, you get to craft your own body armor by taking those disconnected notables with your points. If you want your body armor to grant life, take this notable. If you want resistances, take this one. There's so many choices. Think of it like you're crafting your own body armor, just in a more literal sense. Now, let's move on to those who prefer the reassuring figure.
Okay, so that's the introductory video. Here is like a full breakdown of the ascendancy tree. So let's just take a look at this and discuss kind of what's going on here. So the one of the coolest things, I think, but also I don't think it's done well, is this bottom part here. I like the idea, like, on paper. In practice, I think it's going to be awful, unless you're playing like solo self-found, but even then I still think it's going to be awful because as you're progressing through the campaign, I don't really see this like being stronger than just gear you would find while leveling up until you get maybe your 4th or like even 6th, possibly 8th ascendancy points if you pump them all into this. In my opinion, I think a better way to do this would just be that, like, you can't exceed the maximum number of mods. Like, you can't go more than 6 mods total per item. So if you have like a white item, you could have 6 mods. Blue item, you could, add another 4 to 5, etc., so on and so forth. So you could still use a chest piece, and then if you get like a chest piece with 3 really good mods, you could craft another 3, so to speak, with your ascendancy points here. to me that would be really strong and like with the flavor of what they're going for. But I just think in practice this is going to be awful because you have to use white body armor, and you would have to basically dump probably all of your ascendancy points essentially, at least probably 4 to 6 or more, to really, for this to really be a benefit to your character. Otherwise, I think you're just probably better off using a, rare chest piece, or possibly, just any chest piece, whether it be rare or unique. Because when we're looking at these, like, this would be good, but you're going to have, like, not a ton of armor when you're just using a white chest piece, like, unless you just put a ton of points into armor. I mean, it's better than nothing probably, but again, like, that's an ascendancy point there. The 75 to resist, like, that's decent, but again, it's an ascendancy point and you can't use a chest piece with any mods on it. This I feel like is probably just completely useless. No one will ever use heavy bracing. I don't think probably anyone will use this unless they're running some very strange, setup where they're using like energy shield. This one possibly, like, I could see people using this in conjunction with, similar to the Chieftain. I played a lot of Chieftain in PoE 1, and it's got similar vibes, or, very similar to some of the Chieftain ascendancies. So you get your fire resistant, gives you half cold and lightning resistance. So paired with this would be good, potentially. This one is pretty good with increased max life. It's not more, it's increased, but still, with the way that the nodes work in this, I guess we'll have to wait and see what the new passive tree looks like. So it's hard to know how powerful the 15% increased max life will be, but as of the current, passive tree, 15% increased is pretty strong. 20% increased strength, that's pretty good. That's pretty strong. If you're like a strength stacking character like I had on my Titan build, it's going to give you, additional damage, additional HP, and there's various other nodes that you can use strength to like bolster your other stats. So this is pretty decent. Again, this is probably useless. Like, this is probably not going to be utilized, unless we see some other kind of like interactions. I don't think anyone will ever take the plus to cold or plus to lightning resistance. 5% life per second is pretty strong, especially with how limited it is on the passive tree currently. It's pretty hard to stack life regen percent based, so that's pretty decent. 50% reduced critical damage bonus. I mean, it's not bad, but I don't know if it's worth an ascendancy point. But it could be. Like, I could see this possibly being used. These two down here, Flowing Metal and Molten Symbol, I think are also probably some of the stronger ones. So, of the ones that I see people actually potentially using, definitely these two. And then Leather Binding. So you've got, 3 ascendancy points there. Support Straps, 4 ascendancy points. Kitava Engraving, 5 ascendancy points. And then up here, like, I could see you taking this potentially for, just all the added resist. Possibly, I don't think you'll be able to squeeze this in there, because though, that, assuming these all take 1 ascendancy point, which if they don't, it will be crazy. Like, if they don't take ascendancy points, then this would be like absolutely broken. An incredibly powerful class. If you get to pick just like 6 of these or 8 of these and it doesn't cost an ascendancy point, then this class will be crazy strong. in my opinion. But I don't think that's the case. I'm assuming these take ascendancy points. Let me come back here in the video because he does like quickly hover over the node. I'm just gonna turn off the audio, and we'll see if I can catch it and pause the video to see. I think it was right after this when he gets into the armor crafting portion right here. So let me slow down the playback speed. We're going to enhance, zoom in. I can't tell if I'm playing. Okay, I'm playing. Let's see. All right. Very soon he's going to move the mouse. Maybe I slowed it down too soon. Okay, here we go. So he assigns that. I wish you could see. So he's got 8 ascendancy points. Oh, and I missed it. That was terrible. See, it says click to allocate. I wish, I wish he would click on them and we could see if it actually takes a point. So I guess we aren't 100% sure, but I would assume it has to take a point. But we'll go back here and we'll finish looking at this. So a couple things we don't know really is we don't really know exactly how these work here. I could see there being potential interactions with fire spell damage on hit. I don't know exactly what they could be because I didn't really play a caster yet, so I don't know what all is out there for like the, that mechanic. But I could see this being potentially, you know, unlocking something very strong. It could also just be a red herring and nothing to it. Like it could just be it could just be bad. Temper weapon. That's what they showed off in manifest weapon. So this we at least see it in action. He hits his hammer. It gets like fiery explosions on hit. We just don't know the actual mechanics of that. We don't know the actual mechanics of this. So up here, basically, I think if you're using 6 armor nodes, then you're probably gonna want to get Coal Stoker. Otherwise, like with only using a white chest piece, I think you're gonna have, gearing is gonna be much more difficult without taking Coal Stoker. Maybe down the, when you get really, really good gear at the end game, potentially you could like spec out of that. And possibly like you could spec out of this if you don't need it anymore. But I feel like you're gonna have a hard time getting decent chaos resistant and maxing all 3 elemental resistances without taking like tantalum alloy and coal stoker. Forged in Flame also would be pretty solid. Like on my Chieftain, I had basically like 90% all resist. So that was fairly strong. And with this, you're going to get 5 to max all resist, which is already that's like a 20% damage reduction to elemental damage if know how the mechanics work. So typically the game is balanced around you taking 25% of the elemental damage. So if you have max resist at 75 and you get hit with 1,000 elemental damage, you're taking 250 damage. So another 5% all resist. Now you're taking 200 damage because you have 80% resistance. So you're taking 50 damage off of down from 250 to 200. That's a 20% damage reduction. So it's actually much stronger than you think. And when you get to 90% all resistance, it's makes a huge impact on your survivability. And I could see that being the same here. So like if you take this path here, or sorry, to Coal Stoker, you're getting 50% or 15% also fire resist. And then I'm assuming it doesn't point to this one over here. I'm assuming it's probably another 15% fire resist, but we don't exactly know. We do see over here, so you get 20% fire damage going for the spell damage on hit. You get the same thing over here, or sorry, 20% melee damage going for temper weapon, and then you get 20% minion damage going for manifest weapon. So my thoughts on this class, I feel like in solo self found, it could, if you wanted to play as like melee character on your first class, like with no gear, it could be strong, potentially. But again, I don't think you're really going to be able to take advantage of any of this for your armor until you've got like 4 to 6 ascendancy points. Because if you just have 2 of these, it's, going to be fairly weak, in my opinion, compared to what you would get just off a regular chest piece, like rare chest piece or a unique chest piece, etc. So I just don't know, like I feel like this class is either going to be S tier or it's going to be dog shit. And right now I'm kind of leaning towards it being dog shit, unfortunately. Possibly like in extreme scenarios with like the perfect gear, maybe this could be incredibly strong and overpowered, but at the same time, like typically any class in that situation with like the best gear is going to have, a similar outcome and be very strong in its own right. Is this going to be stronger than other classes and like edge them out? I would say probably not. I think probably the Huntress is going to be, the new monk, quote unquote, in terms of like the majority of people are probably going to be playing Huntress, and people are going to find like the strongest couple builds for it, and then that's what like 80% of people are going to play. I may play this class, or Ascendancy, just to test it, and I may do solo self found just for the heck of it. I really just want to see more like how these mechanics over here work, and if this is something we can set up without like really having um like weapon damage, because that's one thing that like if I could make like an elemental damage character with without having to really be concerned about what my gear is while I'm leveling, because being honest, like my first playthrough with warrior was you know pretty slow going. I didn't really die, but it just was not like at the pace that, like, if I had to play through the entire campaign again at that pace, like I don't know if I would want to at the moment, just because it took me probably a couple weeks, just based off my schedule to really get through it and get to like the end game. And once again, like we've only got hammers, so if I was going to do this, I think I would probably see, is it possible to set this up with a different weapon that's currently in the game, because I've already played hammers, and like I was saying in my other video where like your weapon is essentially your class in this game, like I don't really want to play hammers again, because unless they're just adding a bunch of new skills for hammers, or they've like completely revamped them, I don't want to play it again because it's not really fun. Like the only skills that were like viable was really like Stampede, like leveling up and playing through the campaign. Everything else, it's just too slow, it's too clumsy, it just, for the amount of charge up time a lot of the abilities have, like they don't do enough damage to really make it worth it. And you know it just was not what I was hoping it would be. unfortunately. Like if the AoE was bigger, if the damage was higher, like might be a different story. Um, but just Warrior was not in a good place at the launch, and this almost feels like another slap in the face, where we're getting just not a strong ascendancy from just at face value, in my opinion, especially when you're comparing it to some of the other ones that were announced. So you've got like a Huntress ascendancy that gets to wear an extra ring, and then to get more buffs like from their ring. So it's like not really any negatives or drawbacks there. Like I don't understand why we've got to have a drawback to this class, and like a massive drawback at that. It's like you basically don't get a chest piece. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, if I could use like Bringer of Rain and then still like use these armor things for a chest piece, like that almost would make like Bringer of Rain in its version, in its form in this game, like that combined with this ascendancy might, there might be something there. But I don't think it's going to work, because I don't think you can even equip a chest piece with Bringer of Rain again. And it's much weaker in this game, like compared to Bringer of Rain in the first PoE. Like the first PoE, it actually gave you a ton of defense, so you could like kind of still make it work and have like a character with decent defenses. But in this, it has garbage defense, and all it does is it lets you use like Giant's Blood without the stat requirements. So that is not good. And then here you get basically no chest piece, and then you have to put all your ascendancy points into basically having a chest piece. So those are my thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think about this ascendancy. Do you feel like it's got potential? Do you think it's just garbage tier? Um, do you think, like, is anyone excited about this ascendancy and excited to play it? I don't know if I was gonna play a warrior again. I don't know if I would pick this ascendancy or pick Titan. Um, I mean, that you could potentially just take like all these offensive nodes and maybe do something with that, but like I'm not really sure. It's going to depend a lot on how these abilities work, and it's just kind of weird how this ascendancy class, it's like half active abilities, and then it's half like, do you just want to like put all your points into you know having all your ascendancy points so you can have like an above average like chess piece, and then not have any other like benefits from the ascendancy. So it's just very confusing to me. Like I almost feel like going Titan and getting hulking form, where you get plus 50% like effectiveness from all the small nodes. I almost feel like that is way better than this, and it takes 4 points, a 4 point investment. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I'm really curious. Am I missing something? Uh, I mean, I guess we haven't seen all the new 100 support gems, but my thoughts on the support gems in PoE2 are that they're very specific, and it's like some of them only work on one or two skills, like shocking. I forget what it's called, but the one that you can use for Stampede and for Leap Slam, where it just like, or maybe it's, I forget. Maybe it only works on Stampede currently, but when you take like steps, you do damage based on your strength. Like there's some support gems that only work with one or two skills that are currently in the game. So are these 100 plus support gems going to work with just only a couple of skills? Um, and it's kind of just like everybody's going to be pigeonholed into a similar setup, because that's really the only options, at least currently. One thing in PoE 1 that it did really well was that like all the support gems, you could basically use them on almost any any ability. Like they had gem tags, and that's how you knew whether it would work with it. You know, whether it was like projectile, AOE, slam, like strike, spell, etc., etc. So like that's how you knew like what would work with what. But they were, you know, they worked with so many different things, and you could mix and match them and combine them for like new interactions and mechanics and setups, and it was fun to experiment. I'm missing like the experimentation here in PoE 2 so far with what we have available. Um, and you know, I know this is early access, and I played PoE 1 in early access as well. But the big difference when I played PoE 1 early access, that feeling, that like, you know, feeling of experimentation was there from, you know, day one when I played PoE in the early access, like 10 or so years ago. It was like, whoa, this is crazy. Like I can put all these different support gems and totally change how this ability works. And you know, you could mix around, mix and match, and it was just interesting to like test how the different interactions worked. But in this, that thrill, that excitement is just not really there. And I'm comparing this to like early access for PoE 1, so it has me a little bit concerned. Just, you know, is PoE 2 going to like be a true successor to PoE 1, or are we looking at basically just like a watered down version of PoE 1? Um, I'm starting to wonder. I mean, I still think it's a great game. I still think it has tons of potential. I'm still gonna play it, and I'm looking forward to playing it again with the fresh economy and, you know, some of the new content. But those are just things that I'm questioning and hoping that the developers are planning to, you know, address, because like they're addressing things in the in game. It sounds like they've improved kind of like the meta in-game scenarios, like what you'll do, so it doesn't just become very monotonous. And so I'm hoping that they'll also like capture that excitement of the experimentation with the skills and the gems, and support gems, and with like weapons and everything. And one thing I'm really confused about is like when the druid comes out, like is shapeshifting going to be only for the druid? Because right now all the abilities are granted by your weapon. So is like shapeshifting gonna come from its own like weapon type? Just like what's that gonna look like? Are other classes gonna be able to shapeshift? Like if you take the shapeshifting weapon or whatever and you equip it on, let's say, this ascendancy here, the smith, like how is that gonna work? How is it gonna interact? Are you gonna be able to temper your shape-shifting weapon and then shift into a bear and like make explosions? Like that might be kind of cool, but like if can you manifest a weapon when you're a shape-shifting bear? It's just there's a lot of things where I'm just like I feel like they're painting themselves into a corner, and then they're going to have all these problems like that they need to solve that are unnecessary if they would have, you know, stuck with something more familiar to the first game, like with how the gems worked, and the gems, like the abilities weren't granted by your weapon type specifically. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. I'm starting to, you know, just ramble at this point, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video here. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to give them the D.